24 photographs, 8 years, and in every single one of them, the joy is unmistakable, the kind of joy you cannot manufacture, cannot PR spin, and cannot fake. Meghan posted them herself on her own terms on their anniversary, and somewhere across an ocean in a palace, people were counting. Actually counting how many times they appeared in those photos. And the number they landed on, 1, told a story they were not prepared to deal with. But there is a detail buried inside those 24 photographs that almost everyone glossed over completely. I'm going to come back to it in a few minutes because once you understand what it actually represents, it reframes this entire anniversary moment, not as royal drama, as something far more human than that. May 19th, 2018, St. George's Chapel, Windsor. That was the day Meghan walked down the aisle toward a man who had already chosen her knowing exactly what it would cost, and what it cost was everything: his title, his security detail, his proximity to a family and an institution he had given his whole life to. He walked away from all of it, not because he was weak, because he was clear. 7 years of unrelenting pressure followed that wedding day. 7 years of stories, leaks, carefully placed briefings, and tabloid campaigns. 7 years of people confidently predicting the divorce that was always just 6 months away. 7 years of a media machine that built its entire identity around the certainty that this couple would fall apart. And here they are. 8 years married, 2 children, a life in Montecito that by every visible measure is full and real and entirely theirs. That is what we are actually talking about when we talk about this anniversary, not the palace silence, not the source briefings, the 8 years, the fact that the story went the other way. So here is what happened. On their anniversary, Meghan shared a series of photographs on her Instagram story, previously unseen images from their wedding day at St. George's Chapel, and then something more intimate, footage from home. Archie, now 7 years old, Lilibet, 4, an anniversary cake, a family celebrating together in the kind of quiet private happiness that no press officer arranged and no royal aide scripted. Sky News Australia was among the first outlets to run the story that followed, and the line that told you everything was this: a source confirmed the royal family made no attempt to contact Harry and Meghan on their anniversary. No phone call, no private message, no gesture toward peace. The silence, according to the source, was intentional. Now, the way the press framed this was as though that silence was some kind of power move, a punishment, a signal, as if Harry and Meghan were supposed to feel that absence like a wound, but that framing only makes sense if you believe the royal family's approval is still something the Sussexes are seeking. And if you have watched this couple for the last 5 years, you already know that ship has long since sailed. But that is just the beginning, and this is where it gets really interesting. Let us talk about those 24 photographs, because the people who were apparently monitoring Meghan's Instagram with enough attention to count every frame, they noticed something specific. King Charles appeared in exactly 1 photograph, 1 out of 24, and in that single image, he was not facing the camera. He was mid-step, walking Meghan down the aisle, his back turned to the lens, an image that exists not because of a close relationship, but because her father was not there that day. Charles stepped in to fill that role. He walked her down. And then, by every account we have since learned, the relationship went in the direction it went. Now, what exactly did the people monitoring these photographs expect? That Meghan and Harry would center the people who spent years actively trying to dismantle their marriage in the photos they chose to share on their most intimate milestone. William reportedly told Harry that Meghan was not someone you marry. Members of that inner circle raised objections before the wedding had even happened, and the stories that followed, the ones the whole world watched unfold, those did not come from nowhere. And everyone with any genuine awareness of what has happened in the last 7 years knows exactly where they came from. So the palace noticed the omission. A source made sure that observation found its way into the press, which tells you more about where the anxiety actually sits than anything in those photographs themselves. Because Harry and Meghan posted 24 images of love and joy, and 8 years of choosing each other, and the response from the other side was, "We counted. We noticed. We were not included. That is not a power move. That is a wound." and the audience recognized it immediately. One person wrote, "They expected to be in anniversary photos after everything they put that couple through. The audacity is something else entirely." I know, right? There is a particular kind of entitlement in believing you deserve to be celebrated by the people you spent years trying to tear down. That is not a royal family behavior specifically. That is something far more universal and far less flattering. Another comment read, "Meghan posting those home videos without a stylist, without a PR team, just her family being genuinely happy. That is the most radical thing she could have done." Exactly. In a media environment built entirely on performance and image management, the most subversive thing you can possibly do is just be genuinely happy and let people see it. How irrelevant are Harry and Meghan again? Someone else wrote, "The fact that they are counting photographs tells you everything about who has moved on and who has not." Yeah. And the thing about that comment is it does not even need elaboration. It just lands as true. Here is the one that stayed with me the longest. A person said, "Archie presenting the anniversary cake. Lilibet at 4 years old celebrating. That is the photo I needed today." And there is something about that detail. A 7-year-old and a 4-year-old marking their parents' anniversary with a cake they helped present. That no palace statement, no carefully arranged public appearance, no source briefing can compete with. That is just life. Real, earned, beautiful life. And then this one. They said Harry would come back within a year, then 2, then 5. 8 years later, he is cutting anniversary cake in Montecito with his children. At some point, you have to update the prediction. Do you see what they did there? The people who spent years forecasting the collapse of this marriage now have to reckon with the fact that the forecast was simply wrong, not slightly off, completely 8 years and counting wrong. And one more. The royals being erased from the story. Where have I heard that phrase before? Well, where indeed? The same people who spent years trying to erase Meghan from their story are now upset about being absent from hers. The irony has not been lost on anyone paying attention. Here is what this story is really about, underneath the palace counting, and the Sky News reporting, and the source briefings. It is about what happens when a narrative built entirely on someone else's failure has to keep running in a world where that failure never came. Publicly, the palace has said nothing. Privately, as we now know, the counting was happening in real time. What this moment signals, emotionally, culturally, is something simpler and older and more universal than royal politics. It is about the freedom that comes when you stop needing approval from the people who never intended to give it. That is not a Sussex story, specifically. That is a human story. And millions of people recognized it immediately in those anniversary posts because they have lived their own versions of it. Let us also be honest about something. The pressure that was placed on this marriage, the intensity of it, the specificity of it, the way it followed Meghan in particular from the very beginning, did not emerge from nowhere. She was already accomplished before she ever stepped into that world, a working actress, a platform she had built entirely on her own terms. And certain institutions, certain press rooms, certain structures found that combination, a biracial American woman with her own identity and her own voice, threatening in ways they were not always willing to say out loud. They went after her because of who she is, and she did not break, she built. Remember at the start I told you there was one detail most people completely missed. Here it is. In that single photograph of King Charles, the one where his back is to the camera mid-step, walking Meghan down the aisle, there is something worth sitting with. That image exists because Meghan's father was not there that day. Thomas Markle did not make it to that chapel, and in the space he left, Charles stepped in. It was, by most accounts, the right thing to do in that moment, but in Meghan's 24 anniversary photographs, her private, personal, chosen archive of 8 years, that moment is present, not celebrated, not centered, just present, one frame, back turned, out of 24. That is not cruelty, that is proportion, that is a woman who has given everything in her life exactly the weight it deserves. No more, no less. And the fact that the palace noticed the ratio and briefed the press about it. That tells you who is still keeping score, and who stopped a long time ago. This is exactly what Princess Diana wanted for her son. She longed for a life like this, filled with love, peace, and the kind of freedom she herself was never given. I know she is looking down from above, so incredibly proud of the man he has become. Against all odds, against every force that spent 7 years trying to rewrite this story into a cautionary tale. Harry and Meghan are still here, still thriving, still sharing 24 photographs of a life that is fully, unmistakably, irreversibly theirs. They chose love. They chose peace. They chose Archie and Lilibet and Doria and Montecito, and mornings without aides and evenings without cameras positioned to catch the performance. And we get to witness every single step of it. The institution is still briefing journalists about photograph counts. The Sussexes are posting home videos of anniversary cake with their children. One of those stories is going to outlast the other. It already is. And if you think today's story was something, what is coming next is even bigger, because the anniversary coverage has cracked open something much larger about how the narrative around this couple is quietly shifting in real time. And I will have that for you very soon. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think the palace briefing the press about being left out of those anniversary photos was a strategic move that backfired? Or does it reveal something deeper about how that institution actually feels about the Sussexes right now? Drop your answer in the comments below. I will see you in the next episode. Goodbye.